We will get started. So, I love to share stories of law of attraction and manifestation. I think that it really grounds in the reality of creating your own life. And when we share our stories, these magical stories, we really get to connect in. So I thought it would be just a fun way of sharing what we've experienced and bringing tips and tricks that we've learned along the way and sharing with others. So I really had to think about what stories I wanted to share with you, um, because I have so many. I have a lot of stories that, from little tiny, like, thinking about birds and then birds manifest in a really cool way, or um, thinking about a word in my mind and then the word like shows up in a book later on in the day. As I have gotten more aware of my world around me, I'm sorry, I wanted to make sure. As I've gotten more aware of my world around me, I am becoming more aware of these manifestations. So, what I want to begin to say is you are already creating. Each and every day, each and every moment, you are creating. Um, it's not something that you need to learn. You already are doing it. It's just a matter of what is your focus on and what are you bringing into your life. So, when The Secret kind of like blew up, it was basically just to wake you up to the fact that you were already creating. It's not something that you turn off or on. It's something that you learn how to direct your focus. So once you start to learn how to direct your focus, then you start bringing into your life the things that you want to experience. So when I got really clear about what it was I wanted to share, the first story that came to my mind was the first time that it was so powerful and so magical that I knew that something more was going on. I had been studying the law of attraction for some time, but I was still working with the old paradigms of not really believing that I was creating my reality. I was playing around with like the green lights and the parking spots, but nothing like really definite. So I was in a time when I had gotten back with my now husband. He was my boyfriend, and I was really in a lot of fear about my relationship from everything that I was experiencing, that I had experienced in the past. And I was like holding myself in all this fear. And I was in so much physical pain, not physical pain, emotional pain, that I just felt like I was just like a knot. And I remember being in my living room, and I remember just like surrendering and saying, like, whatever happens, happens. Like, I'm done being in this fear. And let me go back. The week before that, I had really like started to think about wanting to get microdermabrasion. And for those of you that don't know, microdermabrasion is like basically like resurfacing your skin cells. It's like to help rejuvenate your skin. But most of the time, those sessions are $150 to $200, and I couldn't see paying that at that time. So it was like something I had just kind of thought about and then I let go. So here I am, I'm in my living room and I'm like releasing this fear and saying like, I'm letting go, I'm not worrying about this. And I have a salon in my house. And like 10 minutes later, the doorbell rings. And I'm like, that's odd. I didn't have anybody scheduled. So I look out the window and there's this red Corvette. And so I answered the door and there's this like bubbly blonde standing there. And she's like, some of your clients said that you might be willing to help me. And I'm like, absolutely, come on in. Like, what can I do for you? And she hands me a flyer and she's like, I work for a Medi Spa and it's about 20 minutes from my house in an opposite direction. So it was kind of odd that she would even be it was really odd that she would come to my house because I'm not like a huge salon, it's just me. And she hands me this flyer and she says, would you be willing to put these in your salon? And I have a coupon. And I'm like, absolutely. So I start looking down the list and there is microdermabrasion. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, I actually was just thinking about like wanting to try this. And she's like, why don't you come in and I'll give you a session for free? In that moment, I was like, holy shit. I was thinking that I wanted microdermabrasion. That's something very specific. I let this fear go. I surrendered all this fear. And 10 minutes later, she shows up in my driveway and hands me it. And that's the first time that I was like, there is something to this. I mean, even like my conscious, even my mind was like, okay, we can't make this up. So that ended up being my cornerstone, my like grounding point in my mind. Whenever I was doubting, I always go back to that. I'm like, nope, remember, microdermabrasion, like you can't make this up. So the tip for this tip I wanted to share was, when you are in fear, in any fear, you are holding yourself apart from what it is you want. It's like, if you're a huge garden hose and there's water flowing through you, the fear is holding the hose tight. Nothing can get through, or just a little trickle. And as you start to release the fear, the doubt, the worry, the anxiety, as you're letting this go and you're moving into the vibration of trusting, optimism, hopefulness, you are expanding and allowing more and more to flow to you. So fear, worry, doubt, all those lower vibrations are cutting you off from what it is that you're wanting. As you're letting go, you're allowing things to come into your life. So fear actually stops you in all areas of your life. The second story that I want to share with you is the story of my getting pregnant with Emilia and then my labor and birth. I'm not going to go into the gory details about it, but this story really represents the whole mechanism, the whole mechanics of creation and manifestation. So even before I got pregnant, I knew that I wanted to have what you would now call an alternative birth. I mean, who would have thought that like we would be in a place where we'd be calling this birth an alternative? Like, I knew that I wanted to have a natural birth, and I really wanted to have a water birth. I actually wanted to have a home birth, but when I ended up getting pregnant with her, the midwives that were in the area had been given a cease and desist order, and they were not allowed to practice. So the only other option we had was to go to a birthing center, which was an hour and a half from our house. So I knew that this was something I wanted. I just felt like this big pull of wanting to have more control over my body and not wanting to go through the hospital program. There's nothing wrong with that. It just didn't feel like something I wanted. So I got pregnant with her very easily, and I stayed with my original OBGYN until I was about 4 months pregnant. And then I still kept having this pull. So my husband, who has always been amazingly supportive, allowed me to explore what it would be like to go to the birth center. So we set up an appointment and we went. Like I said, it was an hour and a half. And even though I had doubt when I went there, the larger part of me felt called there. So we together talked about it and agreed that that's the path that we wanted to take. So after I committed to going to the birth center, what I would do was every day I would go into my bedroom and lay down, and I would start to visualize what it would be like to actually go there and what it would be like to have a natural birth and what it would be like to experience this. I also got the Hypnobabies birthing program, and I actually didn't use it during my birth, but what for me, because I was already like focused on the mindset part of it, it really like drove in the mindset. So I started to change my beliefs as these beliefs were coming up, the fears, the doubts, the worries of, are we going to make it in time? The fear of what's going to happen with my body. I changed the fear of that, have like what was going to happen in my body to my body knows what it's doing. It's creating a baby without me consciously doing anything. My body knows what to do. I changed the fear of something bad happening to the midwives are trained, and this, we as women have been doing this for the beginning of time. And I started to change the paradigm. So the fear was saying, you know, this belief is happening, and I transcended it and changed it to a new belief. And then I started to write down what it was that I wanted. And as we got closer, we narrowed down, or I narrowed down. I mean, he didn't really care one way or another, but I narrowed down. There was 5 midwives that would have attended me, and I narrowed it down to 2, and then I narrowed it down to 1. And she was just really sarcastic, and I just really liked her personality. And there was only 1 water birthing room, so it was basically first come, first serve. And they took 35 women for 1 month. So if August there was 35 women that would, you know, potentially go to labor, they took 35. September they took 30 to 35, or you know, so potentially there could have been a woman laboring on the same day I was laboring on. So I just started to make a list of what it was that I wanted. I just kept focusing on it every day for 15-20 minutes, whatever felt good. I would visualize what it felt like to have this birth, and driving up there and being in the water birthing room and experiencing it. At the time, my husband was on call, and he could be an hour in the opposite direction. So I wanted him to be off call, and I wanted it to be a weekend. There was also the state fair going on, and I didn't want to have to contend with the traffic. I wanted to get up there with ease, and I wanted to have plenty of time because, you know, it was an hour and a half drive, and I didn't want to tear, and, you know, all the things that I wanted, I focused on. And so when it came down to like the last week, the midwives bring you in and they talk to you about the potential of you going to the hospital. And before that even happened, I had already surrendered everything. I completely let go of it having to be this way. I got to the point where if it was my health and Emilia's health, I would go to the hospital and have a C-section or whatever willingly. I surrendered it all. So when the midwife had the conversation, she's like, you know, getting like preparing herself, and I'm like, it's fine. Whatever happens, I am completely okay with it. It's about our health first. And she's just like, oh my God. She's like, usually this is like, you know, I'm having to like coach people through it, but I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, our health is first. So the day comes, it's a Sunday morning, my water breaks like in the movies. I am completely still. I had no fear. I just felt like this sense of peace because I just worked through so much fear. I actually was just like elated. And I got in the shower and I called the midwife, and she's like, okay, just hang out at home and call me back, and we'll take it one step at a time. And she calls us back like hours later, and she's like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, we're just hanging out and watching TV. And she's like, you need to be in labor. Why don't you come up here? So we go up. We had plenty of time because my labor actually didn't even start. They had to naturally, holistically induce me with castor oil. I don't recommend it at all, but it does work. It's effective. my husband and I couldn't be at the birth center until I was in active labor, so we ended up going to dinner. So I'm at Olive Garden in labor, and we had to like call the waitress over and say like, I'm in labor, and so I just want to let you know what's going on. And then we went back to the hotel room so that I could labor there. And after I was in active labor, I went back to the birth center. I was the only person there. I got the birthing room. The midwife was the midwife that I wanted. I had Emilia. I think I was in active labor for 7.5 hours. I had her at 7:57 the next morning. Um, it was not easy. I'm not going to say it wasn't easy. I'll get to that part in a minute. It was amazing. The experience was absolutely amazing, and I didn't tear or anything like that at all. My midwife was blown away. We were back home, so we had her at 7:57 on Sunday morning. We were back home at 1:30 that afternoon because they have an early release. As long as you and the baby check out through their health testing, they want you to go home and be in your natural environment so that you can rest and heal with your family and you're in your own comfort zone. Within by the end of the week, I was healed. It takes your body a complete year to actually heal, but like healing as far as feeling like physically well, and I just felt really good. So the mechanics of this, and this applies to anything that you want to create in life. You have a desire. You're holding a desire. So my desire was I wanted to go to the birth center because I didn't want to go the hospital route. So you're holding a desire. But fear arises through that, and your beliefs that you're holding and the fears that you're holding are going to come up, and you have to transcend them. So you're changing this belief. The fear is, if I don't go to the hospital, something bad's going to happen to her. If I don't go to the hospital, I'm not going to make it in time. If I don't go to the hospital, something's going to happen to me. If I don't go to the hospital, something's going to happen to her. So these were the fears. I had to transcend them and change them into the beliefs that I wanted to create. I believe in my body. I believe in the process. I believe in the midwives. I believe we're going to have enough time. I believe that I'm going to be fine. And then after you start to transcend these beliefs, you visualize and you see what it looks like, and you start to feel, and you really implement it into your subconscious mind. You're taking the time to connect in. You're taking the time to visualize. You're taking the time to see and to feel and really feel it. Allow the emotion of excitement and joy, and allow these exciting feelings as you're visualizing and you're feeling. This is the power, the excitement, the feelings that you're feeling. And then you have to detach from the outcome. You have to let it go. So as you know, after I visualized and I really was getting these into my subconscious mind, I had to fully surrender, and I had to fully let go of the outcome. I mean, you literally have to let go of the outcome. It has to be like, it's like you're pulling yourself into this one reality and you're saying, I want this is what I want. But then in the end, you let go and you say, whatever reality comes is okay. So when I surrendered to the potential of having to go to the hospital and getting a C-section, I really truly surrendered. What that does is it takes all the resistance out of it, and you allow every potential to be equal. And so you align with the reality that you want to create because you're allowing everything to be equal. And then you trust and you just let go. Now, I believe the reason why I experienced my labor was intense. It was very intense. I mean, I think labor is intense, but I think that some people feel it more intensely than others. And I believe the reason why my labor was so intense was I was so, I was pushing against the pain. I was so concentrated on not feeling pain that I was actually pushing against it instead of just accepting it. You know, that this is a part of it and it doesn't have to be really bad and I can handle it. I was pushing against it. So I think I actually created more resistance and felt more intense pain than I should have. So the next time, I know that I'm not going to push against it. So let me recap the mechanics. You are holding a desire. You develop a desire, whether it be a new car, more money, a different relationship, a better marriage, more friends, a better business, a new career, a thinner body, whatever it is, you're holding a desire. And you are holding that desire because it is there for you to manifest. You are not holding a desire for something you don't want to create. You're holding a desire for something you strongly want to create. It is there and it exists because it's a potential and life wants this to unfold for you. So once you start to align with your desire, any beliefs that are in the way, any roadblocks, any fears, any worries that are in the way are going to arise. And once you start to see them as just a belief and only a belief, and they can be changed and you're going to change them, in that moment, you allow the belief to arise and say, okay, this is not what I want. I'm going to transcend that. And then you pick what you want to choose, what you want to believe. And as you start to implement that, every time this fear arises, you say, no, this is what I believe. This fear, nope, this is what I believe. Eventually those fears start to drop away because you're creating the new belief. And then as you start to visualize and add emotion to what you're wanting to create, you are creating this in your subconscious mind as a potential. And then once you have gotten to the point where you feel really good about what you're creating, and you'll feel the shift, because in the beginning when you're starting to create it, it feels really good to visualize and it feels really good to like do all these things and look for examples. And then it's going to shift and it's going to feel actually resistant to start to look. So say you're looking for a new car and you've put all these, it's the desire and you're holding it, and then all the, fears and worries about if I can afford it and blah, blah, all those, whatever fears. And then you're looking for the examples and you're like test driving cars and it feels really awesome. And then it starts to shift and it starts to feel a little resistant. Like, oh, I'm kind of getting sick of looking for cars. That's when you know it's time to let go. When you start to feel the resistance in it because you're constantly searching, it's time to say, okay, I don't need to worry about how this is going to happen or when this is going to happen, or even if this is going to happen. It's time for me to let it go completely, and then let it go and trust. So these are my tips for you, and I hope that you apply them. I hope this brings a little bit more clarity into how you're actually using the mechanism of creation. Remember that you are creating each and every day, every moment. You're creating something. Something's coming to you. It's just, what are you focused on? Is it something that you want to experience, or is it something that you don't want to experience? And when you're ready to own the power that you created both, then you get to change it. And each and every belief that you hold is just a belief, and you get to change them as well. As they arise, you get to pick and choose if it's something that you want to experience. As your beliefs arise, ask yourself, is this something that I want? If this is not something that you want to believe, pick a new belief. And you can. Each and every belief can be changed. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again. Bye.